Good morning, everyone. I am Dee. This is another episode of Spiritually Speaking. Today, I have the fabulous Michael with me today to show you and tell you and share with you everything that is Michael. So, how are you doing today?
Doing well, D.
Thank you for
And
coming on my
yeah,
podcast with me today. I appreciate you.
yeah, thanks for having me. What a wonderful way to start off the week.
Yeah, fun times. I'm really excited about this conversation because you're a little, what I would describe as unorthodox in your approach to things. And I love that because the beautiful thing about what we do is there are no rules and everyone approaches it differently and experiences it differently. So I'm really excited to have you share another vision of this with everyone.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I live a pretty unconventional life. I feel like I've been aspiring to live an unconventional life my whole life.
Yeah.
And
And
I'm
now you're having all the
shifting.
fun.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, where to begin?
Whatever you want to start with, Michael.
Sure. Okay. Oh man. Well, let's see. I was fired from my job last November as a content writer. I was making the most money I had ever made as a writer, really, I mean as a creative professional. But I was miserable because I was working 40 hours a week with a company that really did not respect my work or my time, and it was just like one thing after another. So it ended up being a huge blessing because like I said, I've been trying to live this unconventional life my whole life, but unfortunately, both my parents, my mom's an accountant, my dad's a doctor, so. Growing up, I was told, stay in school, go be a doctor, or go do something where, something safe, where you're gonna just show up 40 hours a week and get your money. And I learned very quickly in college that I didn't want to be a doctor. I actually shadowed my dad, and I went into the OR with him as a freshman. And I said, Dad, this is really gross. I said, I love that you love this. But it's not for me. And I see why they pay you the big bucks. This is very technical and advanced. But I don't really like hospitals, and I don't think this is for me. And gosh, I think was I 19 or 20? And I didn't really know what I wanted to do with my life. And I kind of spent my whole 20s trying to figure it out. My first job out of college, I worked on a cruise ship. I hosted guest activities. And I liked that. I liked having a microphone. I liked,
Yeah.
the whole kind of performance part of it. I also taught an improv class on the cruise ship, which was fun. And improv, as you're gonna find out, has been a big theme of my life. But in the same thing, like about it was a 6.5 month contract, so I got 4 months into that and was like, I'm really kind of sick of this, because having that really rigid schedule, having to
Yeah.
show up and do these activities every day with these cruise guests. And most people don't know this, but most cruise ships throughout the year, it's essentially like an old people home on the sea. Like it's really like a lot of people, they just older people, they come.
Yeah.
It's actually cheaper for them to go on these cruise ships than to do other stuff and all the meals and everything. So yeah, so I realized after that, I was like, I don't want to do this. I went to New Zealand for a year. From 2015 to 2016, I lived in abroad in New Zealand on a working holiday visa. I went to the small town of Wanaka, which was on the South Island, kind of like a ski town. And I posted in a Facebook group. I said, "Hey, would anyone be interested in an improvisational theater class?" And I got about a lot of interest. So I rented a little room in a little hotel in town, and I started teaching a class. Um, every week it was like less and less people showed up, but the people who kept coming were like really into it and really dedicated. None of them had ever really done improv before. And actually right here, I have these are right here. These are my notes. This is my
That's
class. Eight
amazing.
weeks on computer paper and pen, and every week it'd be like, an hour or two before the class, and I'd be like, what am I going to teach? And I would go back to just like my own, like the improv classes I took in college, what I enjoyed, and I had some books too, and I would just go and I ended up designing this whole 8 week curriculum. But it was incredible because after those 8 weeks, my students started getting really good. They started teaching me things, and so I said, guys, what if I contacted a bar in town and we did a show, and they were like, oh, we'd love that. So I did that, and this was again a small town. There wasn't really a lot of theater or anything, and the local newspaper ended up interviewing me because they were like, this is so cool. And then we ended up getting rented out the whole space, and it was like 300 people came, and I was like
Wow.
the Drew Carey, like in like who's it was like very much like Whose Line Is It Anyway. We did a bunch of short form games, and it was just so much fun because again, none of these people had ever really done theater before, and they got so good, and they just enjoyed it so much. And then so for the rest of my time there, we ended up doing a second show, but I was like, we reached a point where I'm like, okay, guys, this isn't a class anymore. We're a team. Come over to my house, and we're gonna go and do some more advanced, like long form improv, like the Herald, and just like more deeper character work. And like I really always look back at that time in my life and was like, that was so, so beautiful.
Yeah.
And it ended up after that season, I ended up going to Wellington, where I kind of spent the rest of my time in New Zealand there. But I went there because for the New Zealand Improv Festival, and so I got to go and like meet all these improvisers from not just Wellington and New Zealand, but also Australia, and just do all these workshops and shows. And I really wanted to keep doing improv there, but unfortunately, there was only a few theaters in Wellington, and they were kind of like audition only. So I ended up actually getting into stand-up comedy, because there was like an open mic every week, and every 2 Sundays there was like a new material workshop that you could go and write and get feedback. And I just wanted to be on stage. And so yeah, I got into stand-up in Wellington, performed. I ended up performing at a festival on New Year's Eve. But that was actually kind of the first big festival I went to, which is funny because I do so much work at festivals now, like we were talking about before the podcast. But yeah, and then from there it was just like I came back to the States. I moved to Chicago, and because I was like, I want to keep going with stand up and improv, and Chicago's kind of the improv capital of the world. So I moved out there. I lived out there from 2016 to 2019, and again took classes, performed, wrote songs. But I ended up in Chicago. Like I went there and I was like, I'm gonna be on SNL. I want to perform and do all these big things, and it didn't happen. I actually ended up I had a lot of problems with my mental health when I moved to Chicago, and I became very aware of our corporate, corporate capitalism and just money. I was struggling so much with money and depression that I ended up not being able to perform as much. But that's when I discovered really, I think, spirituality on a deep level. I was a member of this Kundalini yoga studio up in Chicago called Satnam Yoga. And my girlfriend at the time introduced me to the studio. I was like, oh, this has really been helping me. And then, Kundalini is like yoga, but with breath work as well. So I started going there, and I started having these very powerful experiences. And I really think it was like 2016 where I had like a full-blown spiritual awakening, where I started having all of these experiences that I couldn't really explain, but I felt connected
Yeah.
to some sort of higher power. And just I just found the more that I was like kind of going performing, and I had a lot of anxiety, and I however, when I went to the studio when I was doing Kundalini, I was like, oh, this feels really good, and I don't have to perform. I can just be myself.
Mhm.
Um, and that led to me meeting my teacher, Jacques Theron, and because he come by the studio for breath work, and then that would later turn into ayahuasca ceremonies, which would push me even deeper into kind of facing myself. I remember actually in my first ceremony, I mean, it's like my intention was like, I want to discover the root of my creative blocks, because I was like, all I wanted to do was just like create and be confident. And I felt just like, was like judging myself and all of this. And so I went into my first ceremony with that intention. And what was behind that was like everything, it was like, oh, wait. So here's how you're treating yourself. Here's all the
Yeah,
ways that you're treating the people you claim to love, and you're kind of being shitty to them, and you're being mean to yourself. And I was like, oh man, I'm like, no, I'm not a good person, or I'm not as good of a person as I thought I was. And so,
the judgment comes
that
in.
yes, yes. And so that really pushed me into this deeper, really introspection, but also of like, what am I doing with my life? And I feel like those ceremonies brought so much to the surface, and I was really ready for change. I was ready for transformation, but I didn't have the tools, and I wasn't in a supportive relationship. And I was really, I think 2018, 2019, I was kind of spinning my gears. And then it all kind of came to a head in 2019. I self-published my first book, which is right here, Message with Purpose, Swipe Dating Simplified. And I wrote the manuscript for this book in 2016 when I was living in Wellington, because I was living with some flatmates at the time. They were younger, and I was going on all these like Tinder dates, and they're like, Michael, how are you going on all these dates? And I was like, step one, this, step two. And I wrote it on paper. I'm like,
Yeah,
oh, this is a book. This could really help people. And
yeah.
then, right, but then I was like, oh, I tried publishing it that year. And then, it was like those things with even my ex-girlfriend was like, just shut up, stop talking about this book and just publish it. Yeah, and but I was just so scared to put myself out there. And like, of course, like it took 3 years to actually do it. And I think by the time I actually published this book, it was like a lot of what I wrote, like the algorithms had changed. There was all
Yeah,
these new apps, and I don't know that it, like, again, my whole goal with this book was just to help people express themselves and to be more authentic across
yeah,
this like seemingly dehumanizing dating apps where you're just like a face on a screen with six
yeah,
photos and a little bio. And I don't use these apps anymore, but it's like authenticity and expression is still very much what I'm about, and in my own business and all of that. But yeah, it's just, I don't know. It's like writing this book literally almost killed me, though. It really did. It was like I invested so much money in this book. I was like, I'm gonna build a business. I'll be a dating coach, and the money will come. And the money did not come. And my coaches, who I paid a lot of money for, didn't help me. And so I ended up having a very big mental breakdown in. It was right before my birthday in 2019, or right around this time. Um, which is crazy. That was 5 years ago. It feels like it was
it's
yesterday.
amazing how fast it
But
goes.
oh my gosh, yeah. And I moved home with my parents. I moved back to Florida, and was just kind of, I don't know, I was in a bad state for a few months. And, I published this book though, and it was tough though. And then really 2019, 2020, I was just kind of building myself back up. And I was in a lot of debt. Actually, like I got into a lot of debt from publishing this book. And so I had to live with my parents for a bit, which was not very fun, but I super appreciate them
Sure.
supporting me. If they hadn't done that, I don't know. I quite honestly don't think I'd be here. Um, but 2020, and then 2020 was where I got a job working for like a tech company, and then ended up moving into writing. And then that's kind of what led, I moved to Richmond. My sisters lived here, and just have been building myself back up to that point in November where I was like, oh, I'm really making it as a content writer. And then it was like, nope, you're fired for speaking up. And since then, again, I started my business, Michael Boothby Creative. And I call myself a creative empowerment guide. So I help others. I have a program called the Conscious Creator Program, which is a combination of, I use this mythology deck from my teacher, Jacques Theron, to help people find their archetypes, to really figure out who they are on a deep level. And then in that program, I also incorporate breath work, the improv, to help people develop a playful, a playful mindset. because I think play is so important. It doesn't matter
Yeah.
what you're doing. If it feels like work, if it feels like a chore, you're going to resist it and you're not
Mhm.
going to want to do it. So
Yes.
trying to get people, and even I'm myself, everything I do, I'm trying to just play and to make it fun because number one, I know I'll do it, and number two, I'm going to do better work.
Yeah.
And that's what I learned from improv. And then I do a little bit of like AI training and like just kind of creative tools. But the whole point is after the 8 weeks that people have the tools and they have the confidence to create whatever it is they want to create, whether that they want to be a coach or an artist or a musician, whatever it might be. I'm just here to support. And I've been working with my first two paid clients, and I'm really enjoying it. It's like I'm just like, man,
Yeah.
I just want to do this the rest of my life because
Yeah.
it feels so aligned with who I am and all of my skills. Um, and then on top of that, I went to Bali in February with Jacques, my teacher. He did his first 10-day breathwork retreat. So that was like I just went further with my training, and now I also work as a rebirther. So rebirthing is a 10 session kind of like more of a therapeutic breathwork series. And I've been working with several clients with that as an apprentice, and I do these online and in person here in Richmond. Actually, I have a client later today. So yeah, I'm a creative empowerment guide, a rebirther. I'm also a singer-songwriter. My first EP is coming out later this month. It's called We're All Doctors Now. Because I truly believe we all have the tools to heal our lives, but not just our lives, our friends and our family, but we have to do the work first. And
Yes.
we have to find these ways to heal outside of the medical system because number one, the medical system is very expensive here in
Mhm.
America. They
Yeah.
charge us so much money essentially for band-aids too. A lot of it is not even it doesn't the modern medical system does not address the root of our suffering and the root of our pain. They give us band-aids, they give us pharmaceuticals, and all of these cost a lot of money. And I think that's a big part of my album. And my message is that we have to get away from this because we have to all reckon with the fact that our medical system is for profit. It is not for our care. It is
Yeah.
so these people in suits can literally just like take money off of our suffering and they don't care if we live or die. So again, we have to become doctors. Every single person has to seek out healing for yourself, but it's available. Like I
It
have found
is.
so much healing through breath work, through plant medicine, through yoga, and really just eating right, eating healthy.
Mhm.
Food is medicine. People
Yes,
don't
it
know
is.
that. And most of the food in the grocery store is just poison, and it's also getting more expensive
Yes,
every
it's
year.
garbage.
So
Oh my gosh, it's
it's
garbage. Completely
mm-hmm.
agree with you
So
because
again,
I used to be a nurse and I got out of
really,
nursing, yes, because of exactly the things that you just said, because it's so insane. And I watch so many things happen, the lack of information that patients are given and they don't even know what their medications are for or how to properly take them or seeing
right?
actual coworkers and administering medications incorrectly. I mean, it was insane. And being a really
Yeah,
strong empath and watching this stuff happen every day was like soul crushing for me. So even though I was
mm-hmm.
making good money and, everything, I had to, and I have that stability. I had to get out of it for my own self-preservation because I couldn't, and people are like, well, you should stay in there for that reason. You can help people for that reason. And it's like, I am one person. And yes, I can help the person that I'm helping in that moment, but I can't change the system. And
No,
that's what needs to happen is the system needs to be changed. So I completely agree with you. And we do
that
everything
is,
natural
yeah.
now. I recently had a friend say to me,
Mm-hmm.
she offered me a Tylenol because I was sore from moving some stuff. And I said, I don't take that, and she goes, you don't even take Tylenol? And I said, no, I don't, and it's amazing how many things like that people think are benign like Tylenol. They
Right.
don't even read the side effects that can happen, how it can toxify your liver like that. I mean, it's insane. So there's a lot of things happening, and people aren't educated, and they don't want to educate themselves, and that's
Right.
the really unfortunate part. And
It
that's
is.
why I love doing
Yeah.
this, to get this information like what you're saying out there. You can heal yourself, and listen to Bruce Lipton. Holy crap. He's amazing on this topic.
Mm. Yeah, so my the first track on my EP is called Doctors, and I wrote this song again in like first half of 2019, right before my life fell apart, because that was my experience in Chicago from like 2017 to 2019. Was I was suffering from severe depression and anxiety, and I went to a doctor. And it's like, number one, spent barely any time with him. I spent more time with his grad student who cared. And then he came in. What do we got going on? Oh yeah, you're depressed. Yeah, I think you might just be creative. Anyways, here's a pill. See ya. And
Right.
I felt so unseen. I felt so unheard. And then right, and then that, and over those 2 years, I ended up taking probably every different antidepressant that there was, and none of them helped. They weren't helping. I read this book also that came out, I think it might have been 2017 or 2018, but it was about oh gosh, I don't remember it, but it was by this journalist, Johan Hari. Lost Connections. It was called Lost Connections, like the surprising causes of depressions and the, whatever the solutions. But essentially, he was someone who was on antidepressants his whole life, and then he kept having to go to the doctor, and he was like, "Oh, it's not working. Okay, we got to up the dose, up the dose, up the dose. Okay, well now we'll put you on this, up the dose, up the dose." But it never helped him, and so what he found was in his book, he traveled around the world. He said, we're not depressed because of our brain, because that's what they
Yeah.
told us when
Yeah.
Zoloft came out in the early 2000s. They said, I remember there were these little blobs, right? These cute little blobs, and they had these nice graphics, and oh, it's about serotonin. The serotonin levels in your brain are off. And like, again, maybe this is true for a small percentage of people, but I
Yeah.
really think they just took this to sell these pills to people, because it's we're not depressed because of our serotonin levels. We are depressed because there's no more community anymore,
Yeah.
because everything is expensive, because it's hard to live. The fact of the matter is, depression is the body's way of saying, like, of shutting down, because again, depressed, right? It's not about what's in our brain. It's about, we don't have community. We don't, like, families are, it's, our society is in shambles. And I mean, I would say just the whole world. Look at the world. Look what's valued. What is valued is money, is profit over all else. Right now, we have an active genocide happening on the other side of the world, and it's happening because of money. Because these greedy people can't stop selling money or selling arms to make money off the deaths of innocent people. And it's like, because when you strip away all of the politics, all of the religion, that's why this is happening. And again, I studied history. So, like, I especially US foreign policy in the 20th century was my specialty. And so we had World War II, and the United States came over, and right, we beat the Nazis. And then what did we do? We sold loans. We sold loans to all of Europe to help them rebuild. So we double dipped there. And then we've been in these constant conflicts ever since. The Korean War, Vietnam, Iraq, Afghanistan. And it's like all of this stuff is just ways for the military industrial complex to make more money. And then but it all ties together, right? There's the military industrial, the pharmaceutical industrial complex. And so it's like, for me, the medical system, military, it's all connected, and it's
Mhm.
all designed to divide, distract, and keep people sick.
Yeah.
And
Because
so
that's where people
the
put their
last two,
focus. Steve and I were just talking about this, and that's this drama, all this dramatic stuff happening,
yes,
all this painful stuff happening, and that's where people put their focus, and that's the only place some people put their focus. And so they bring down their immune systems, they bring down their energies, which opens up a whole new plethora of undesirable things, and we have to learn to refocus our energies off of those things and on the positive things, like what you're doing with the creativity
Exactly.
and things like that, so that we're not burying ourselves, because we don't have to. It's a choice
Right.
where we put our focus,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and we can
Right.
shift that
That's
anytime.
I felt that so strongly this weekend. So this weekend I went to a festival in North Carolina called Casual Campout. And so this is my other business is called Lovewise Media, and it started 2 years ago with me just going to festivals and interviewing people. And I still do interviews, but now we bring the Lovewise Lounge. So we do the Lovewise Lounge is content creation, divination, and inspiration. So we come, we bring a lounge, we've got two inflatable couches, I've got a nice little desk, and we got a free tea station. We've got coloring books. You can come and relax. You can get a reading if you want. I teach conscious comedy, throughout the day. Late night, I bring out my looper, and so I'm improvising music. So exactly, but that being there this whole weekend, Tommy said, "Wow, I had such a great time this weekend. I didn't even have service." And it was just a nice reminder, because if you're just like, especially if you're in like suburban America and you're whatever, you go to your job, you come home, you turn on the TV. If you're stuck in the cycle of just the 24-hour news cycle, you will start to believe that the world is like a scary place and that
Yeah,
things are bad and blah blah blah. And it's like, okay, yes, that stuff is happening, but here in North Carolina all weekend, it was nothing but love and
right.
music and connection and breath work and yoga. And it's like, just, uh, I don't know. It's like, I would encourage anyone listening too. It's just like, just find places and spaces where there are good things happening and good
Yeah.
people, because it exists. And it's like, I truly do believe, and it's funny, the last two lines of my song, Doctors, of the verse, I go, and if the system won't change, we'll have to discover another way to rehabilitate and recover. I guess we're all doctors now,
Yes.
because they're not going to give it to us. My tagline for my website, Michael Boothby Creative, is liberation through creativity.
Yes.
And liberation has never been given to the people in any society. It must be taken. But
Yeah.
right, I'm not saying, hey, like go loot the grocery store, go take
Right.
down the politicians.
Yeah.
No, I don't.
No.
I'm not encouraging violence. What I'm encouraging is like passion.
Yeah.
Is you must take your passion and fearlessly create,
Yeah.
consciously create, because if you can really just dive into your passions and make money doing what you love, all of that bad, scary stuff will just melt away in
Yes.
the light of what you're doing. And I genuinely believe that the more people who can become conscious creators, living passionate lives away from the system, the 9 to 5, the medical system, that it will all just fade away.
Mhm.
Like it really, everyone will just be enjoying themselves.
Yeah.
And then slowly, these corporations, their profits will just slowly go down as people are opting out and rediscovering, um, like the intrinsic way that we're supposed to live on this planet, the way that humans have lived on this planet for thousands of years before all of these control systems. And they're going to feel how much better it feels and go, oh, wow, I'm going to tell all my friends about this. And there's the thing is, your friends will see you
Yes.
outside of that 9 to 5 living and thriving, and they'll go, how did you do it?
Yeah.
And now it's like, whatever, make a program, sell a course, or just keep making shit. If you're an artist, you can just keep making stuff and selling it. This is a beautiful story. I met this couple this weekend, and they're in their 40s and they vend art. And so she has 4 kids, and then yeah, they started dating. So he's like now dad. But they encourage their kids to make art, and I love it. They're like, yeah, we homeschool our kids, and they're like,
Yes.
oh yeah, our daughter, our daughter was our daughter was worried about like making money from her art, because if it became work, she'd stop doing it. And then they told me the story of how she's like, oh, well, she can make these, and she just loves making these, and it's so easy for her. So she decided to sell these. So now she comes to markets with us and sells her art. And I said, this is so beautiful. Like, I wish my parents gave me this experience, because I was always told you can't be a musician, you can't be an artist. That's
Yeah.
scary. You're not going to make money.
Right.
And that's
You
not
have to be,
true.
right. You have to be
It's
sensible.
not true. It's not true. You can make money doing anything. It's
Anything.
2024. We have the internet. Like there are people right now making money off of like TikTok, just like chewing gum
Just showing up
probably,
in
and they're
front of a
making more
camera.
money.
Just
Showing up
showing
and
up.
being weird,
Yes.
being silly, being
Yes.
goofy, but it's like there's so many ways to make money and to express yourself in this world, and the system just wants to put everyone in a box, and it
Yeah.
wants to put you in a box so they can use you as a battery so some rich guy can buy another yacht. And it's like, stop being exploited, stop being used. It's like you can find whatever, there's something within you, a
Yeah.
skill, a passion, and you can put yourself out there. You can teach, and you don't need any certificates, you don't need any degrees. All
Thank
you just
you.
need is passion
That's
and
right.
and a will to just do it. And to me, like, I
Yes.
think that's what creative liberation is all about. We will find our salvation not from something outside of us, but from within us. And everyone
Absolutely.
needs to hear that, regardless of your religion, regardless of your beliefs. All of those stories don't matter. You are God. Like you are
That's
source.
right.
Go and
Yes.
create. Yes.
Yes.
And so,
Absolutely. That's so
because it's like,
amazing.
I
Thank you
really,
for saying all of that.
yeah.
That is so much what I feel in my soul right now, and getting that message out there for everyone to hear. And that's going to touch someone, because there's someone sitting there right now listening to this video, and they're going, "Holy shit, I don't have to have a certificate. I don't have to have a diploma. I don't need a master's degree."
Oh,
What? No, you don't. You don't. You
you
absolutely
don't.
don't.
You don't. You have it all within you. Like I have a bachelor's in history, and I guess like I learned how to write from that, but it's like no one, and here's the thing, no one in the corporate world ever cared about my history degree anyways. So it's like it's just I don't know, even my best friend Alexander Bayer, he runs Lovewise Kombucha. And right, so he's a yoga teacher, he sells kombucha, he trades
Oh, I love
stocks, and
kombucha.
so he makes money in all these different ways. He dropped out of college.
Yeah.
He was an education major. He wanted to be
Yeah.
a teacher. He still is, but now
Yes.
his life, he is someone who has found liberation through creativity, right?
Yeah.
He really is like a perfect case study of just he chose himself, and he's not special. He was living in Cape Coral with his mother. He was overweight. He was like a cook at an Applebee's, and he just reached a point, just like I did, where he was like, I'm sick of it. I'm
Yeah.
sick of feeling this bad. And he discovered yoga, and he started going to festivals. He started tripping. He started having experiences and having an awakening. But for him, for me, I would say it was improv that really led me down this spiritual path. For him, it was yoga.
Yeah.
But now it's like he's shown me photos of himself from the early 2010s. And I'm like, I laughed. I'm like, this looks nothing like you. He was
Right.
fat, overweight, acne, and now he's like tall. Like if I showed you a picture of this man, you'd be like, oh my God. He's like, he's like long hair, he's attractive, and he's just glowing because
Yeah.
he's very healthy.
Yeah.
And so transformation is possible for anyone. It really is. This
Anyone.
is not something that is outside of you. And if you have friends who have transformed or are like living these amazing lives, don't be jealous of them. Like be inspired by them. And that's
Inspired.
something that
Yes.
I'm always telling myself too. I run a Facebook group called the Authenticity Accelerator. And I help, it's just my three kind of pillars for that are connect, play, and create, right?
Yeah.
I help others connect to who they are on a deep level, develop that playful mindset so they can create from their most authentic and just expressive place. And so every week on Wednesday, I hold a free chat, right? I hold a chat. It's a community meetup where we start with some breath work, and then I introduce the topic. I speak for 5 to 10 minutes, and then I open the floor to the community because I want to hear what the collective is thinking. I want to hear what other people are thinking. There's so many coaches out there where they're like, I'm going to go live, and they talk. I'm like, nah, I started out doing that and I hated it. I'm like, I don't, I'm getting sick of my own voice. I want to hear what other people have to say in their stories, which is, again, that's kind of what I do with Love Boys Media at festivals. So it feels more organic to just also, um, just interview other people. But I
Yeah.
also think in the current social media landscape, it feels like everyone's just shouting at each other.
Mm.
And I want to use technology to create digital spaces where people can come and feel seen and feel heard and feel like they are in a room with people who care and give a
They
shit.
matter.
So that's,
Yeah.
but on that topic, last week, it was all about releasing judgment. So, releasing judgment for ourselves and others, because exactly, it's like I used to be like that too. I'd see other performers who were doing better than me or having more success. And I would, oh, well, they had blah, blah, blah. But it's like, as long as you stay in judgment, it's like you're just pushing people away. You're building walls. And so we judge others, but we're also judging ourselves. And that keeps us from creating and
Hmm.
living our most authentic life. So it's like once we release judgment and we can just be inspired all the time by other people who are doing well, and ourselves, being gentle with ourselves as we grow and transform, like it just opens up so many doors. And it's hard too, because social media and just society right now inherently is so judgy, right?
Yeah.
We all have likes and comments and, oh, look at so and so. And it's like, especially online, people can be so mean online and
They
so
can.
hurtful
Yeah.
because there's no consequences.
Yeah.
And that is kind of, we've never had that before as humans in history. Usually in the past, if you spoke up, there were consequences,
It's a
right?
fact.
Just like if you're at a festival and you're being a dick to someone, you're not going to be a dick for long,
Right.
because other people are going to come in and go, what's going on here?
Right. Yeah.
So I'm trying to bring authenticity back. I'm bringing, like Justin Timberlake brought sexy back. I'm
Yes.
bringing authenticity back.
Absolutely.
you know and
Absolutely.
and yeah.
And it's okay for it to look different. And I think that's what people, they think their authenticity means they have to go out and create something that they like that someone else is doing. Absolutely not. You don't have to do that. You get the choice of doing it your own way, in your own time, in your own personality, and that is what people want to see. And the people that are in the know anyway are seeing straight through the bullshit anyway, you know? They're seeing it. So they want to
Exactly.
see your real self. And that's what's so refreshing about people like you. You've stepped so fully into your authenticity that you make it feel safe for other people to do that. And that is magic.
Exactly.
That is magic.
And that's improv, because really it's like my very first teacher, I took a beginning improv class back in, it was my junior year of college, and this was really when I discovered the magic of improv, because in that one semester, just from that class, at the end of it, I felt closer to my classmates than a lot of, not just my close friends from college, but like my whole life.
Mhm.
And I said, there's something really special about this. And I remember when I went to start teaching, I messaged my old teacher, and I said, well, what do you think is the most important thing for teaching improv, especially people who've never done it? And he said, Michael, the most important thing that you can do as an improv teacher for beginners is to just get them comfortable expressing themselves, because we spend most of our lives like people being judged and people telling us what
Yeah.
to do, even from an early age. I'll see it
Oh,
out
yeah.
at the grocery store. A kid will jump into a puddle and his mom or dad will go, don't do that,
Right.
bad. And
Yeah.
it's like every time that a parent does that to their child, they're just like putting in that conditioning that it's wrong to express yourself.
Yeah.
And then we go to
Mhm.
school and our teachers do the same thing. Hey, you can't talk right now. It's test time. Go back to your desk.
Right.
And really, what is all of this doing? It's conditioning us so we can then be 35 and in a cubicle and hey,
Yes.
Michael, is that report done for me? And
Creating
it's
little
like,
robots.
no.
Yeah.
Exactly, little cogs in the machine. And then so like I talk about all this. This is why I teach conscious comedy, which I'm actually teaching this week online, Wednesday night, right after the free community meetup at 6, 7 to 9, 2-hour conscious comedy. And this is breath work, movement and space exercises, and improvisational theater games. So it's a little bit of all of the things that I do. But again, taking that advice from my teacher, I said, okay, how can I get people really comfortable and connected expressing themselves? And for me, I'm like, let's start with breath work. Because number one, even I even start my community meetups with 5 minutes of breath work, because it doesn't matter where you are, who you are, where you're from, you've probably had a long day. And so
Yeah.
like even just 5 minutes of breath work is going to center you. It's going to help you just ground into the space so you can be more receptive to and open to whatever it is, whether it's
Yeah.
playing, whether it's a conversation. Um, so we start with that, and then we go into the movement and space exercises, right? First, we connect with the divine, we connect with our authentic self, and then from there, we move the connection into our body and then into the space, right? So I play a
Yeah.
bunch of fun music, we dance, whatever. I might throw some fun prompts, let's all be giraffes. Who cares, right? I'm gonna give you permission. Let's be goblins. Let's see what that
Yeah.
feels like. And then after that, we go into the improv games and we can bring the words in, and now we can connect with each other. So it's like
Yeah.
those three different levels of connection.
Gosh,
Wow.
that sounds like a
Oh my
lot of
God.
fun. You should I invite you. I shouldn't say should.
Yeah.
And there's another one. I invite you to put the information for that in my spiritually speaking group also, because I think it would
Oh,
be
okay.
great,
Yeah,
absolutely, to because you never know how someone's going to connect with their authentic selves and grow their spirituality. So
exactly.
some people don't want
Exactly.
to share other people because they're afraid it's going to take away from them in some way. I am so not that person. So please, I do invite you to drop that in the spiritually speaking group also, because I think getting more of this out there, and how fun. That just sounds like a lot of fun to me.
Yeah.
I'm all
It's
about
it's
being a
so fun. I
goblin.
again, yeah, we all have an inner goblin. It's like, ah,
Yeah.
yeah, right? Yeah, yeah, exactly. And yeah, I've been teaching conscious comedy since 20, I think it was 2018. I went to Breathe Festival, which was in Indiana, and I taught, and it was such a blast. But again, because it's like it was just combining all of these things, the improv, the breath work, and then right, the movement and space exercises. So it's like, right, it's a little of all of the slices of me being a performer, being a breathwork facilitator, but and being a creative empowerment guide. Because that's the thing, it's like you just every time I taught this class, every time I teach this class, when I leave, it's like I'm like, yeah, I'm just so full of life. I'm so full of energy. And so that's kind of when I decided, like, I think it was last month, I taught it for the first time online. I was like, oh, I don't know if I could do this online because it's like so fun in person. But I did it, and it was so great. And
Yeah.
I'm actually taking an improv class online right now with my friend Daniel. He started this class called um, Improv for Social Freedom. And it's so funny. I'm like, oh my God, there's others out there like me that are taking improv and taking creativity and applying it. Because that's
Yes.
that's why I teach conscious comedy. It's like, even if you never want to set foot on a stage, come take conscious comedy,
Yeah.
because
Just for
it's like
fun.
life. It's yes, for fun, yeah, but also like you are on a stage. Your life is a stage. The world is a stage, William Shakespeare said. So if you have the confidence to in your life go and interact with people and
Yeah.
speak and give joy and
Yeah.
just like shock people out of their unconsciousness and create a connection, make their day, that's what it's about. That's conscious comedy. It's
Yeah.
being aware at all times. I have now had two friends in my life be killed by unconsciousness. One of
Yeah.
them was killed by someone texting and driving, and my other friend was killed by fentanyl. Both of those are unconscious acts by other beings. They weren't paying attention. So conscious comedy, at the end of the day, it's about paying attention. I always joke that's like my tagline with my girlfriend. Like in my head, conscious comedy is like a big show on TV, and it's like there's like we have sketches and stuff. So I'm always like, "Boom, boom, this is conscious comedy. Are you paying attention?"
Yeah.
You
Oh
know, and
my
that's just like
gosh.
what plays between, right?
Yeah, it's
Because that's the point.
amazing.
It's just about exactly, because if those two people were conscious and aware, they wouldn't have killed my friends. And again, so it's like it's not their fault. Unconsciousness it's an energy. And
Yeah.
it's like right, like the forces that be like how we started this conversation with the news and all of that, they want you to stay unconscious. They
Yes.
want you to stay unaware. You don't know,
Yes.
you don't have to think for yourself. Put on the
That
television. Let us
program.
think for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
No. Conscious comedy, it's like what, like when someone drops the funniest joke, what happens? You stop what you're doing and you laugh. You have a
Laugh your
physical
ass off and
experience.
it feels
Your
so
body,
good.
your right, all right. Your body literally shakes. It's medicine, which is right, my tattoo right there. That's it. You know, when you laugh, you are healed. But also
Yeah.
that comedian, when you go on stage, you write that joke about something that fucked you up and you make it funny, you make a whole room of people laugh.
Yeah.
That's transmutation. You've taken this thing as a source of pain and now it's this funny thing. And like that's my music is too. It's like a lot of my music is about some like hard shit that I was going through and I didn't know how to emotionally get it out. So I put it into my music. And so now instead of just this bad thing that happened to me, it's like I have this beautiful song that now
Yeah.
other people can listen to and sing along to and also like relate to
Yeah.
and find themselves in it. And so I
Yeah.
think that's a lot of what being an artist is about. It's
Yes.
about transmuting these negative events, negative energy in our life and turning it into something beautiful, turning it into something magical that we can share with others and they can go, wow. And like that's like if the whole planet was that, how would this planet look? It would be so different
Yeah, it would be.
than what we have.
Yeah, it absolutely would
But
be.
that's and it is though. I would argue it's happening. It's happening. This planet
It is
is
happening.
shifting. If they,
Yeah.
you know, and I saw this graph recently that I thought was very interesting, because it showed just like the price of different things, like if they've gone up, if they've gone down, um, and it was like wait, all the stuff that got more expensive, housing, medical care. It's like all the stuff that we really need. You know
Yes.
what was at the bottom? You know what got really cheap? You know what's really affordable now? A television. And isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
Isn't that
Yeah,
interesting?
that really is interesting because you're completely right
Even
about
the
that.
even the poorest person in this country can afford a 4K television, but you can't
A
afford
big
housing and you
one.
can't afford healthcare.
Big one.
Mm-hmm. But again, they want that's what the system is. They want everyone distracted. They want everybody fighting and arguing amongst ourselves. Oh, it's because they're black. It's because they're Hispanic. It's because they're gay. No, that keeps us divided, which keeps them controlling
Yeah.
us.
I
And
know.
so it's like all of this.
Steve and I were just talking about that because he was telling me this story about somebody who shot somebody else and they were describing the person. And I'm not going to get into the story, but I'm like, why do we care? It doesn't change the outcome that these people are dead. You know what I mean? It doesn't change the outcome. So why do we care? And there's a lot of divisiveness, but we can choose not to participate in it. It's all a choice. And it's absolutely incredible when you realize that and you start choosing differently.
Exactly. Exactly. But it's up to you.
It
You
is.
have to consciously choose it. You have to become the conscious creator of your reality. And it's like, that's what this is all about. It's about transcending victimhood, transcending the past, transcending pain. Because as long as you keep blaming other people, or oh, it's their beliefs, or it's this, and you don't look in that mirror and look at yourself and you heal that within you and say no more. I choose to no longer perpetuate pain and suffering. It doesn't matter the color of the skin. It doesn't matter your beliefs. None of that shit matters. And
Right.
because at the end of the day, all of us have to make that choice to let's put this away.
Yeah.
Let's put this into a box. This doesn't serve us anymore. and let's be goblins, or right, or
Yeah, let's
whatever,
become
or
a
let's
yeah, let's do it.
I'm gonna inspire, I choose to spend the rest of my life inspiring myself and others. And
Yes,
if everybody did that, this world changes like pretty quickly. Like,
exponentially.
um,
Absolutely.
we exact it's like I genuinely, like, we don't, the fight is within us. There's no fight out there, because as
Right.
long as you are fighting the system, it's like you're just playing their game.
Mhm.
And it's like all war. What is it? It's like, no, if I was in a war, I'd want to be like, hey man, do you want to do some improv with me? Like, hey, I had that thought the other day of, like, I'm seeing all these students protest, and I'm like, man, if I was a student right now, like, what would I be doing if I was on those front lines with these cops? And I'd be like, hey, Samantha, how's your mom doing?
Right.
Imagine saying, like,
Yeah.
not like, my, like, hey, what did you want to do before you became a cop?
Right.
Before you got paid to literally, like, be the enforcers of the
Yeah.
capitalist overclass. Like, come on. Like, that, you don't want to do that. You're doing it because it's safe and society is rewarding you for it, but you're doing bad things. You're literally oppressing people. But to have
Yeah.
that, like, I just always think about that, of, like, we go to this protest and it's like, what if all the protesters were just like, like, hey, I love you, officer. What
Yeah.
is it, Jim? Hey, Jim, how's your brother?
Right.
When was the last time you were happy, Jim?
Right.
And you could see them just probably be like trying to ignore them, but it's like, if everyone was doing, I would, like, how funny would that be if, like, these cops are like, you know what, fuck this,
Oh my
I
gosh,
don't
it
want to
would
do
be
this
so
anymore.
amazing because that's the connection, right? That's the connection. And that's what makes everything so magical is having that connection. You mentioned it earlier in the podcast, and it really
Exactly.
is
Yeah.
truly important. We need to see each other as humans again instead of just, you know, player pieces
Yeah.
on a chessboard. We've got to reconnect with that that integral part of us again. And we're getting there.
It,
It's coming.
mm-hmm.
It's growing. That mindset is growing and it's a beautiful thing to me. So Michael, I love what you do. I love the way you approach things. I love that you're unorthodox and what was the word you used to describe it? Your life now.
Unconventional.
Unconventional. I love it. I love it. So if people would like to connect more with an unconventional way of doing things, where can they get a hold of you? And then I'll drop all these
Oh
links
yeah.
down in the description box too.
Sure. So, I mean, I'm on Facebook. Like, I do a lot of my work on Facebook. So you can find me, Michael Boothby. I have a professional page, Michael Boothby Creative. I mean, I kind of just use my personal page as for my business. I also run a Facebook group, Authenticity Accelerator. So you can look that up. We just reached over 400 members, I think, 2 weeks
Yay!
ago. So
That's
we're
awesome.
growing. Thank you. I host free community meetups every Wednesday, once a month. I do conscious comedy. It's $27, but it's a 2-hour workshop. That's happening this week, right after that meetup, 7 p.m. And then I do free events as well, like beyond just the meetup. So this Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern time, I'm doing my first virtual ecstatic breath work. So this is I was gonna say, oh, this is my first time doing a group breath work since Bali, but I had the opportunity to lead a group on Saturday at the festival with
Yay!
it's a shamanic style breath work that my teacher invented. It's very powerful. And again, this is 100% free. I just want people to come and have a powerful breathwork experience from the comfort of your own home. So again, Authenticity Accelerator on Facebook is where that's all happening. You can find me on Instagram, michaelboothby.creative. Um, I've got my first EP coming out. It's coming out on my birthday, May 27th. And it's called We're All Doctors Now. It's 4 songs, 4 tracks. It's all kind of singer-songwriter, just these, like, everything I've been talking about on this podcast put into song form. So yeah, excited for that. I'm also on LinkedIn, but I don't like going on LinkedIn. LinkedIn's silly. LinkedIn is a crazy, silly place that I prefer to not go to.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's it. I'll make sure to send you those links. And yeah, just for anyone listening, again, would love to connect with you. I'm always happy to chat. And then, but really come to the meetups. The meetups are you're gonna get a good taste of what I'm about, and just I get to hear from you in a community setting. So that's how I like to really meet people. It's like a festival online. I like to, I'm just bringing the festival into the online space. Yeah.
Awesome. I love it so much. Well, thank you, Michael, for being my guest today. I really appreciate you. And again, I'll get all those links dropped in the description box below so people can find you easily. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in to another episode of Spiritually Speaking. I love you all. And as always, I'll see you on the next one.